Public schools waste no time jumping back into Democrat hero worship forced on little kids in the public schools. This time honoring Kamala Harris because she's black. Well, she actually isn't, but she'll pass. I seem to remember when another politician won a Nobel Peace Prize and had children around the country singing his praises for exactly the same thing. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziest impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, as you can see, I'm enjoying my Freedom tumbler, but nobody likes to drink alone. I drink alone with nobody else, but nobody really likes to drink alone. So head over to the patriotclub.us, patriotclub.us, that's patriotclub.us, and we'll send you one of these for $99. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's a whole year, tax deductible, helps us keep this show going, it helps us to do. And hey, Pat Riot requires it. All right, turning it over to Katie for the health, which is life support of the Republic.
Well, drama. Can Democrats do anything without it being all dramatic? It's a rhetorical question, I know. They lose, and we know it's hysterical drama. They win, and it's more drama. And, you know, you're supposed to act like you've actually been there before, but they don't know how to do that. For the record, they didn't even win yet. And actually, in many ways, the Democrats lost hard.
Is it like Die Hard?
What a month this past week has been. Remember back when I said we had one more week and I was all excited? Back when I was naive. Yeah, that was like 3 years ago. I'm uber fatigued, and it has nothing to do with me getting over the Rona. This election is exactly like the rest of 2020. It will never end.
This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend.
That's enough, guys.
Some people.
Yes, we did just do that again. But rather than get wonky with data about President Trump, we are going to focus on the Democrats and their hip. Hip, hip.
Hip? Hip hop? Hip Hop Anonymous? Damn you! You gave him the easy ones!
Close enough. We are talking about their hypocrisy. Because if they didn't have that, all they would have are their crocodile tears. And they gave us plenty 4 years ago. Right, Van Jones?
People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
Oh, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
A complete earthquake. This was an earthquake unlike any earthquake I've really seen since Ronald Reagan in 1980.
And there is how so many Hillary Clinton supporters are reacting in that room.
We handed almost unlimited power to a fascist wannabe.
And they are just stunned at the idea that they were completely sure they were coming to this event to celebrate Hillary Clinton becoming the first female president. And
you're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell. This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country. It's real.
Now, 4 years later, and Trump will not concede and is rightfully demanding that all legal votes be counted, the Democrats and media, yes, I know, one and the same, are crying again.
We see him like an obese turtle on his back, flailing in the hot sun, realizing his time is over.
You're ready, legally, constitutionally, congressionally, in every way, to protect our democracy for any skullduggery that the president may try to introduce into this.
Beside me, we're going to show you on the screen, are all the names of United States senators who haven't even acknowledged a clear Joe Biden victory since he crossed the winning threshold of 270 electoral votes.
Well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier to tell your kids character matters. It matters. Telling the truth matters. Being a good person matters.
Van Jones really just can't stop crying. The focus here is that these same people believe that Stacey Abrams is the governor of Georgia, a state under contention right now for this election. And they were the ones who said, do not concede, Joe Biden, under any circumstances.
You know, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is.
But because it's Donald Trump, then how dare you question the legitimacy of this election? Again, this from the lady who has made every excuse in the book for her being a loser.
The Russians weaponizing information, negative stories about me, this whole WikiLeaks beginning to leak in early October of John Podesta's emails, which if you've read them all, they're pretty anodyne, but they were taken out of context. The stories were made up about them. We now know Facebook was taking money from Russian companies to run negative stories about me.
Blah, blah, blah. Please just stop, cake eater.
Forget it, cake eater. If you want to play with yourself.
This election has been a terrible, no good, very bad day for the Democrats. And this is no matter what kind of ice cream Nancy is trying to sell you.
I do believe that we'll be with Biden in the White House and a Democratic Congress and hopefully a Democratic Senate. We'll see in January we'll be able to do great things for the American people. As I said, we've lost some battles, but we won the war. We have the gavel. We have the gavel.
All I can say to Nancy about her pure BS is this.
I hope the next time you get a double-decker strawberry ice cream cone, the ice cream part falls off the cone part and lands in Australia.
It's a pretty bad lie, but that's what Nancy does best. She is completely ignoring that regarding seats in Congress, the main stories have been this is the year of the Republican woman, and that there is plenty of inroads fighting between her establishment cake eaters and the far left. They are even complaining via Twitter that live leaks are happening. In summary on this image, Erica Warner of the Washington Post said in a thread of how there is yelling happening by Representative Abigail Spanberger of Virginia, who nearly lost her race. She says a defund the police attack ad almost cost her the election, and her party members should never say socialism again. She warns of the party getting torn apart 2 years from now. Then Pelosi disagrees and claims they had a mandate before she left the call. Then there was crying. I'm just over here with my popcorn. More on Pelosi and the so-called mandate.
Our caucus has its differences. I would not want to lead in a caucus that was a rubber stamp lockstep caucus. That's called Republicans. We are the Democratic Party, and we have several exuberances in our midst.
That exuberance is known as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her gang of Spice Girls. And boy, has she been busy since this election. She got off of Twitch for a moment to say things such as these. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future. So she has a desire to put people on a blacklist. And somehow that's not racist? But then she told the New York Times all about how racist America is. Remember, she's not racist at all. She claims we need to do a lot of anti-racist, deep canvassing in this country, because if we keep losing white sharers and just allowing Facebook to radicalize more and more elements of white voters and the white electorate, there's no amount of people of color and young people that you can turn out to offset that. But here's the important part of this video, and it comes straight out of the mouths of those furthest left. 4 years ago, we know the progressives listened to crazy Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks when he said this.
Another thing we're done with today is the era of politeness.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So progressives, don't listen to the Democratic Party who tell you to neuter yourself and be polite, okay? No. The progressives we're not going to be polite anymore. You know what we're going to do? Something that the DNC has cock-blocked this entire time? We're going to fight back.
But now they are using their newspeak and doublethink to claim civility and respect, as if they'd been doing it all along. Because they're getting what they want, and that means that they can pretend to be civil now. And yet, here's what they really think. Remember when former First Lady Michelle Obama said before the 2016 election that when they go low, we go high?
When someone is cruel or acts like a bully, you don't stoop to their level. No, our motto is, when they go low, we go high.
Yeah, about that. What she means is we get high and use our fumes to help ignite the flames of hatred, and then we burn down cities. Am I wrong? Obama's after this election thoughts include calling the 70 million people who voted for Trump essentially a bunch of little demons. Let's remember that tens of millions of people voted for the status quo, even when it meant supporting lies, hate, chaos, and division. We've got a lot of work to do to reach out to these folks in the years ahead and connect with them on what unites us. No thank you. But you can bet the sheep will just say, bah. People have turned off their ears once again and crawled back into their holes. Meanwhile, AOC will continue to mobilize.
My next couple of months doing everything that I can to extend help and offer support to the work of fantastic leaders that we just heard from, like Stacey Abrams, to make sure that we don't have a Republican Senate majority, that we win these races in Georgia, that we secure a Democratic Senate majority so that we don't have to negotiate in that way.
I don't want to leave you with a sad note, so here's this. AOC, in peak millennial fashion, came out and said she doesn't even know if she wants to be in politics. It's the stress. It's the violence. It's the lack of support from your own party. It's your own party thinking you're the enemy. Single tear. Again, everyone, know that it's not over. And it won't be over for some time, no matter what the media spouts. Put attention on Georgia, because control of the Senate is at stake. And if you're still feeling down, remember that climate alarmist Al Gore thought he was president for more than a month back in 2000. The world didn't go up in flames or underwater 20 years ago, and it won't now. Just be patient and stay vigilant. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Okay, joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent, to talk about something that is to the surprise of nobody. Joe Biden has declared himself president. The media has declared him president. States still have not turned in their actual counts yet, and yet we're being primed for a President Biden. And what that means is public schools are going back to the Obama days. The minute Obama became president, they all became singing and chanting in really weird ways. We'll remind you of that in the second half of this episode. But now, before we even got into January, before there's an inauguration, we have the Stanley Eugene Clark Public School in New York engaging in indoctrination with our children. Alex, take a look at this video and then we'll let you comment.
Brown girl, what do you see?
I see a vice president that looks like me.
Brown girl, what do you do?
I thought, I hope, I spoke was true.
Brown girl, what do you know?
That I am strong in 2021 to grow.
Brown girl, what do you feel?
That black women will help us stay healed.
Brown girl, what do you see?
A world that sees my skin before it sees me.
Brown girl, what you gonna do?
March, fight, and create a time to make this world.
Brown girl, how are you so strong?
'Cause I believe in a mother.
Congratulations, Kamala Harris!
Absolutely grotesque. I mean, this really looks like one of those weird cult indoctrination sessions. Just don't drink the Kool-Aid. But it is so creepy that black magic is going to heal us all.
Black magic girls.
Can you imagine if they said Jesus Christ is going to heal us all? People would flip.
Can you imagine if they said white magic? White magic's going to cure our ills in the society? And what you're doing is you're grooming these girls at very young ages to believe not that they're equal, but that there's something actually better about being black. And how about that Queens? We've got Queens in our blood. I mean, this is exactly what they're trying to pull apart about Western culture, right? All of the stratification, all of the caste system, the different classes over the decades and centuries. But when it comes to them, they have Queens in our blood. Black magic girls gonna change the world new. These little girls are way too young to understand what they're being asked to say here. And at the end there, they're Kamala Harris, right? The big congratulations for her. And finally, we have a vice president that looks like us. When you look at the ethnic background of Kamala Harris, I'm not even sure that aligns very well.
Yeah, it really is grotesque. And when you think about what they're doing here, they're glorifying a dangerous revolutionist who slept her way to the top. I mean, it's not even in dispute. She was having an affair with the mayor of San Francisco. That's not the kind of person you want to turn into a superhero for little children. You know, if you want to glorify people based on their skin tone or whatever, there are tons of wonderful, heroic Americans that we could be talking about, like Booker T. Washington. But no, instead we're going to glorify and deify and indoctrinate little children to believe that a revolutionary who slept her way to the top is some kind of hero. It's very dangerous.
You know, I think about Condoleezza Rice under the Bush administration and how what an accomplished, what a pristine life she led, what a multi-talented woman that she was, a classical pianist of the highest rate. She had incredible intellectual chops. She was a really great role model, and all the left did was tear her down. And now you've got Kamala Harris, who, by the way, was utterly rejected by Democrats in the primary. She couldn't get anywhere. Even in California, they didn't want her.
What was it, 1% of the total or something, right?
Even in California, they didn't want her. And so Joe Biden gets the nomination. And I no thanks to Joe there, right? These little brown girls are not going to thank Creepy Joe, Sleepy Joe for this at all.
He'll be sniffing their hair.
It's almost as if the implication that's being taught to these little kids, the real power in the country is the vice president because she has brown skin like us.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, hyper-racialism. And indoctrinating children at taxpayer expense to deify a politician is not just disgusting, it's dangerous. It's the kind of stuff we saw in Hitler's National Socialist Germany. It's the kind of stuff we saw in the Soviet Union. It's the kind of stuff we never want to see in the United States of America, and yet here it is.
Well, it's bringing politics into the classroom.
Yep.
I mean, you're literally telling these little girls to they were these kids were clearly brought together. They're only African American girls. There are no boys. There are no other racial kids in this room. They're just all girls. And you segregated these girls, and now you're telling them specifically it's half feminist and half anarchist. It's half feminist and half black racial studies, right? And what you're basically telling them is that we're taking these kids and we're politicizing them. We're using public school resources. We're using the classroom to provoke little children to become very one-sided in their politics. And you mentioned this is very Hitlerian. It's very Soviet. After the break, we're going to look at that as well, too. Back with our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Really glad to have you in studio here today, live, Alex. And so take us back. We're going to go back to the Obama administration. No sooner did Barack Obama become president than the public schools were used in exactly the same way. You may have forgotten this. We'd like to remind you.
We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em. Now's the moment where he's wants to sing. Sing with all your heart. For our children, for our families, nations all join as one. Barack Hussein Obama. He said, red, yellow, black, or white, all are equal in this time. Barack Hussein Obama. Obama is the president, first African American history. 44th president of the United States. The ground has shifted, the world has changed.
And you know the funny thing, Alex? These little kids, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, are the adult 20-somethings now that are so recklessly voting for Democrats without even knowing the issues.
It's what we've been trying to expose for years, dude. They're brainwashing these poor little children in these classrooms. They're depriving them of critical thinking skills. They're handicapping them mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. And then they go out and they burn down our cities when they turn 18, 19, 20 years old. They hate their parents. They want to, mooch off their parents, but yet their parents are evil. It is so dangerous to see that. And people who think that's kind of cute or, I like Barack Obama, so there's no problem with that. This is exactly, as we said before the break, it's exactly the same kind of strategies and propaganda and brainwashing that we saw in every dictatorship of the last 100 years.
The same liberals and progressives who are forcing this on those little children would, under any other circumstance, watching little kids be politicized like that. Can you imagine if there were any school in the country that had little kids as young as 6 and 7 and 8 years old singing hymns of praise to Donald Trump? Can you imagine what would happen if you had a group of little white kids in some Nebraska suburb rural school district singing Trump, Trump, Trump? He's president. He's going to make America great again. That school would be closed. Those teachers would all be fired. And this would be a crisis moment in the country where we would have to completely overhaul how we do classroom teaching to make sure something like that never happened again.
Oh, and the terror mobs would show up and they'd start threatening and burning down buildings. They'd bus in George Soros-funded activists to terrorize the local community. And that should tell you something about what's happening here. All these kids, all these young people who think they're revolutionaries and standing up against the man. The man is brainwashing the children to think just like you think, okay? You're not fighting the man. You are doing the bidding of the man.
There is nobody forcing any aspect of Trumpism on our public school kids. On the other hand, all of this radical quasi-communist garbage, that red shirt, brown shirt nonsense that we used to get in Lenin's Russia and Hitler's Germany, the Hitler Jugend, right? That before they can think, before they can write, before they're able to even, as you heard those little girls, elocution, to be able to even say some of those words correctly, you've got them thinking that they're queens, they're princesses, someone like them has power, and we're going to, through black girl magic, we're going to change the world using public resources, public time. It would never stand in any other way. And it shows you not just the double standards in this country, but it shows you what the future of this country is unless we figure out a way to fight back against what's going on in these public schools.
That's right. These children need to be deprogrammed. And I've said for years, we need to look at the way that cult members have been deprogrammed. Once they get wrapped up into this and their cult leaders teach them how to think and to reject any contrary evidence, it becomes very, very dangerous. And these children must be deprogrammed from this evil ideology or we're all in big, big trouble.
I think that's the perfect ending note for this segment. This is cultish behavior.
It's time for some real education. In 1949, George Orwell actually had published his great dystopian novel entitled 1984, a novel, also known simply, obviously, today as 1984. It would be Orwell's last and most prophetic novel. It focuses on the consequences of collectivism, totalitarianism, censorship, and mass surveillance. More broadly, the novel examines the role of truth and facts within politics and the ways in which they are manipulated.
And manipulation, control, collectivism, all of that is what we've seen in this election cycle when you've got major corporations siding with anti-government forces to censor certain opinions and attitudes while letting others go. The Hillary Clintons of the world are allowed to assert all sorts of lies. Trump said that there are that there are good guys on both sides, never happened. Still alleges Russian collusion, which there's no evidence for. Facebook, no problem. Twitter, no problem. Donald Trump defends himself and defends the idea that there was voter fraud, and there's a lot of suggestive evidence that there was. We're going to silence him. Take a look at this quote from 1984, which so brilliantly encapsulates this moment in time. This is Winston, of course, and he's thinking about this, and who's the main protagonist of the story. And here's the thought. And if all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became truth. Who controls the past, ran the party slogan, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. And yet the past, though of its nature alterable, never had been altered. Whatever was true was now true from everlasting to everlasting. It was quite simple. All that was needed was an unending series of victories over your own memory. Reality control, they called it. News speak. Doublethink. Forget everything you think you know about the founding of this country. Forget the Constitution. Forget the struggle for liberty. Forget the fact that America waged a war, the only country really to have done it so, to end slavery. Forget the fact that in the seeds of the Constitution itself was the guaranteed liberty for everybody moving forward. Forget that document was hundreds, if not thousands of years ahead of its time. Forget the fact that at the time the Constitution was written, no one had ever written a document even remotely like it. Forget the fact that over the last 250 years, civil rights, human rights, women's rights, gay rights, minority rights, civil rights, all of them emanated from Western cultures like the United States. Forget all of that. Lose your memory and restock that memory with the idea that America is nothing but a racist, sexist, bigoted culture. It must be rewritten. It must be destroyed. It must be created again anew from everlasting to everlasting. The sins of our great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers will be the sins of us until the country is no longer the country, and it too becomes part of a history that's written over again by progressive autocrats changing everything in the name of the party.
All right, as always, if you're fans of the show, and you should be, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation of $99 toward our Patriot Club. And as a thank you, we're going to ship this magnificent, wonderful, stupendous stainless steel tumbler etched with the words, "Freedom never tasted so good." Visit patriotclub.us to get started. That's patriotclub.us. Now we're going to wrap things up with the fun fact of the day. A silverback gorilla can lift 10 times its body weight on an average. And that's about 1,800 pounds. And they only use their strength when they feel threatened.
And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie. And until next time, my friends, stay educated.